recording. Okay, good afternoon. It's afternoon now. My name is Amy Forbes. I'm a consultant with the Jackson Collaborative Network, and we're meeting around navigating service systems today. This is our third meeting or fourth meeting, I believe, around navigating service systems. So we're excited that you're all here. I'm joined by my colleague, Sarah.
I'm not esteemed today. Sometimes you say I'm esteemed colleague.
Yeah,
obviously I'm not esteemed.
Crime, sometimes.
I am Sarah Williams, and I'm also a collaborative network consultant at the Jackson Collaborative Network. And yeah, we have a small group today. We'll do introductions quickly, and then maybe do a little bit of understanding the different affinity groups that we have, and some of it's a little bit confusing. Some of it has funding tied to it, and helping ground people in the different affinity groups, and then where we are in this one. So yeah, we'll just do welcome introductions. It looks like we have two of you, and I'm not sure if you know each other. I've met virtually, right? Each of you, but if you want to do your name and agency, if you'd like, that would be great.
Yeah, I can start. I'm Laura Bigcraft. I'm with Disability Connections. I'm the service director.
And I'm Deborah Hyatt. I'm the mobility navigator for the Rides to Wellness program at the Jackson Area Transportation Authority.
Awesome.
Say that 5 times.
That's a lot. That's a mouthful. A small but mighty group.
Oh, I did not hear what you said until just now. But yeah, thanks for being here. And we today will usually, and we were just talking with Laura too, the conversation always depends on who shows up and how much they've been involved in previous work. But we will likely breeze through some of the grounding, what are affinity groups, and kind of move into more of the meat of it. And also, and it's a good opportunity because I know Deborah's a part of the inequitable policies and practices and is working on an action plan. So it would set the stage well for us to talk about action planning and what that looks like, and how to put strategy, connect strategies with action plans, and regardless of which root cause. So yeah, we can move forward.
Okay, so this, I think most of you are familiar with this. This is just kind of group definition. As Sarah mentioned, we have different affinity groups. It is confusing. The network has 14 root causes that we're actually working to address. Right now, we have affinity groups around 3. These bubbled up as folks entered their partner profiles in our on our webpage that talked about what they're doing, what they have momentum around, and what they feel is most important. So this one is in particular about making service systems less difficult to navigate. We know that is a barrier in our community for many, many folks. The other 2 that we have currently meeting around, one is around building trust between community members and providers. And the third that just kicked off is around inequitable practices and policies. So right now we have 3. This one is about service systems being difficult to navigate. And these are really around partnering with community members with lived experience to understand kind of what their barriers are and let them be part of the process and building strategies and interventions that can address it. Really focused on making sure we're hearing community voice and we're listening to those that are closest to the problem so that they can have input on what those strategies look like and how they're implemented. So Sarah and I are always available to assist you in action planning, in helping solidify strategies and figuring out measurements and making sure that you're hearing community voice and authentically engaging our community. We have lots of resources and thought partnering that we can do with you. So quick overview on that. And we hope that you will gain knowledge around how to do those many different things that we just talked about, enhance connections. We have a lot of folks. That has been one of the big thing that has happened in our affinity groups, that people have partnered with other folks in the community on, obviously you're all working to make systems easier to navigate. Some folks have implemented things and we're building off of each other, making connections. So we love that this is like an open forum to share. We've tried this didn't work. we've tried this did work, let me reach out to you, we're going to try that at our organization. So, and then building relationships, we always focus on community engagement and really getting authentic relationships with folks with lived experience. So that when we build these strategies, we're not just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall, we're actually understanding what their barriers are and what that looks like and how we can change those systems. And then tracking and measuring progress is always a piece that we need to build in so that we know if we're moving the needle. All right, couple of group norms. Sarah, I don't know if you want to breeze through these.
Yeah, we can just pause at them quickly. We like to, as we gather together and talk about the work that we're all doing, and react to each other and what we bring to the table, we like to just set group norms around how we want to have a space together. So pausing before saying everything, paraphrasing, posing questions. We want to, and both posing questions and putting ideas on the table, thinking that with the idea that we want any thought or idea about a strategy you're working on, or maybe that someone else is working on, or oh, Laura, did you have success with this thing? Like, we want to create a space where that feels like a welcome space to do that. We like to put providing data in our group norms, because that will be something we always look to and provide and ask for. And then paying attention to yourself and others and presuming positive intention about the conversation and about others. Hopefully all of these will create a space where we can support and connect with each other.
Any questions on any of those couple of slides? That was a quick recap.
Nope.
Right.
So we have a quick, this is just a brief graphic around moving to action. And the arrows there are suggested arrows. They are not always the way it happens. But a lot of times people are wonder, like, at what stage should, or what are the steps? How can I be involved? How can I be connected? And some of these are new, so it also helps to kind of put it on paper. So we have a partner profile, and we have a database that our partners complete. It's very quick and brief, and it's public facing so that people know the different work you're working on in the community. Engaging in affinity groups, you both are here, so that is a great next step. And then our next step, we talk about action planning, because just coming together and talking about things is helpful and great, especially around connections, but really completing the action plan, developing strong strategies, and then really partnering together in the action planning, both with us and others, will really help us track and move the needle around those big root cause issues. Track and reporting progress by updating your action plan. So if something is working, it's not working, I need to change the direction I'm going in. So the tracking and reporting is important. And then success and barriers, always, we like to, because all the data tells a story. If something is working or it's not, that's helpful for us to know, to share, and also redirect if necessary. So this is just a couple, there are a couple slides of strategies that we've captured in previous affinity group meetings. And I think I took notes, I think, and maybe some people entered their own into Padlet, maybe not. But we just acknowledging the fact that we have had conversations, and I know, Laura, you've been part of those too, around what strategies people are working on specifically to make service systems easier to navigate. So today is not like the first time we're talking about, and maybe people want to continue the conversation or strategy that they suggested before, or they maybe want to suggest a new strategy, but just noting that we've talked about it before. I think on the next slide, Amy. Laura, that might have been the one. It doesn't matter. But I included 2 months worth of different, and the conversations we've had around, like, if policies are the reason that we can't, if policies are a barrier to making service systems easier to navigate, like, how do we work around that? What do we do? Is there a strategy that we can create around changing a policy? If not, then what? You know, and so these are some of the things that we've talked about in the past, and we're hoping that maybe even today we can capture some things that you're working on, either that are the same that we've talked about before, or maybe that are different, or maybe they've changed, and that we can really start to hone in on strategies and like start to put them in an action plan, and hear about what you're doing and where you are, and how we can support. And so this is the part where we can pull the Padlet up. I can take notes, or we can also, you can unmute yourself, and we can just verbally say it, or we can put it in Padlet. I don't know if you have thoughts on that, Amy. Either.
We can do both. Sarah, do you have the link that you can put into the chat?
I do. I'm getting
Okay.
it right now.
So this is kind of a way we found that is makes it easier to kind of write down what you're working on, or suggestions or things that you want to work on, as Sarah said. If you open chat and click on that link and open it in a separate browser, you can type your things right in on the Padlet, and it'll come live on my screen. So if you open that in a thing and you want to type things in, like, I'm working on making systems easier to navigate by this strategy, or I want to adjust this strategy, or look at doing this in our organization, you can, the little pink button on the bottom here is where you add, you can click on it, drag it, and then type things in. We also invite you to just verbally talk about things, because this is sometimes weird to do 2 screens and type things on little Post-it notes. That can be a struggle too. But Sarah is our note taker extraordinaire. So if you want to verbally do it, she can actually write it down here too. But it's just kind of a way to capture some of these things, and then we'll kind of move into how we can strengthen some of the concepts that we're talking about here in the next couple of slides. And did we have someone new join our group? Ryan, yes, okay, good. Welcome, Ryan.
I apologize for being late. I just got back from a rural task force meeting that ran much longer than I thought it was going to. So I'm just kind of quick catching up.
No worries. We are happy that you joined us. And as we mentioned earlier, you have a small but mighty group today. So we're going to get into it'll give us a chance to get into some of the meat and actually look at some of our strategies a little bit more in depth. So we're just in the Padlet in the chat. Copy that link, open it up if you want to add your own strategies, or just verbally call it out, and Sarah can take some notes. But we'll start out by we showed some examples the last couple of slides of what folks are doing to make systems easier to navigate. So even if you want to begin by, like, this is a barrier in my organization and I need to know how to address it, or who's got ideas, we'll jump right in.
So we have a barrier with the Rides to Wellness, which is funding, and basically funding and getting people to use the service.
Awesome. Okay.
So
So
will you expand a little bit more? So obviously funding and people using it are like 2 separate things. So yeah, I'm going to put them in separate, because I'd like to hear you talk about that.
Okay, so the rides, people aren't aware. So we're doing everything on our end to make people aware of the program, but it seems like it's not enough. I have flyers and websites, and we've done commercials, and it's not enough. I still hear people saying, I can't get to my doctors, I can't get to therapy, I can't. And I'm like, so have you heard about Rides to Wellness? And they're still not hearing about it. We have all these partner programs and nobody's talking. So it makes me frustrated, because I'm like, wait a minute, we have this available.
I can assure you, Deborah, that we are passing the information along.
That I do know, because I got a call this morning from Disability Connection. So I do know that. It just seems like nobody knows. And it's frustrating because this is available. I have special funding available for those that are 60 and older right now. Who wouldn't want to take advantage of, maybe not take advantage, but use this to get them where they need to go to get them on the right healthcare? So that to me is a barrier. We can't get enough people to know about the program.
So,
And so, oh, go ahead, Amy.
no, I was just going to say, so I'm wondering if it makes sense to back that up a little bit and say, like, so the problem that you're trying to address is that people aren't utilizing your service, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Now, only because, and I only say that because I often have organizations that will say, people don't know about my service. And I always want to kind of push them to think, is it that they don't know about your service, or is that they've had a bad experience, or that they don't trust people coming to their home, or that the times that your services are available don't meet their needs? Or so, like, I would challenge you to back that up and start with your problem statement of people aren't utilizing the rides to wellness, right? And it might be that you're not advertising in the right location or in the right way. I mean, if the folks that you are trying to reach are quote off the grid, right? Then they're not going to get social media, advertisements, or they won't read newspaper advertisements about that. So it could be a multitude of things. And I think that you could be building a lot of strategies around this. So you might have, okay, people aren't utilizing it. And let's break that down into the whys, right? We talk about the 5 whys. Well, why aren't they utilizing it? Might be that they don't know about it. Might be that they don't trust your organization. Might be that you have practices or policies around your rights to wellness that they have to call 24 hours. And I'm totally making assumptions. I'm not super familiar with your program. But if there are policies in your program that they have to call 24 hours in advance, and that is too difficult because there's chaos in the home and their childcare provider let that go or whatever. So you might have a strategy around, like, let's look at our policies and practices. Is it, I could get a ride to my doctor's appointment, but I can't bring my kid with me, or I can't bring 3 bags in the car, or so you might build multiple strategies. Like, they're not using it. And one might be, let's look at our policies in our program. Is there advance notice? Does it take too long to get there? Do you pick up multiple people on the way and then they've been late to their appointment and then they got their appointment canceled? And all of these are complete assumptions. So I'm just making things up. I acknowledge that. But I think I would encourage you to build that strategy, or build that problem, like they're not utilizing it, and then get into the whys. A lot of those whys are going to come from reaching out and having conversations with community members. So if you're trying to reach people that are off the grid and they're not using it, like, have conversations, like reach out to them and say, did you know about this program? No, why not? How do you get your information? Well, I typically get it from the Gazette that's down in Partnership Park. Well, that is like ding, ding. Then that might be a spot that you'd look to make these services known. And I think you'll get, if you can have those relationships with folks, I think you'll get deeper stuff. Like, well, I don't use it because of this policy, and I have 6 kids and you only let me take 3. And what am I going to do with my other, or whatever it might be? So I know I'm rambling, but those are just
Yeah, Laura, did you have a thought?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Amy says, because a lot of our consumers are people that would use Ride to Wellness. A big part of that is, I think this is the one, it's $15 each way, correct? So for our consumers, I'm really anxious to hear about the 60+ assistance, because the majority of our consumers, the reason they need a ride is because they can't afford a vehicle, they can't afford a taxi, they can't afford, and $30 is the difference between eating this week and not eating. So a way to address that barrier, and I know somebody's got to pay for the cost of that. It's expensive. And I think you guys I love the Rides to Wellness. It's really needed. Transportation is one of the biggest barriers to people in our community. So I would like to find a way that we can lessen the cost of that for you guys, so that we can lessen the cost for, and I don't know how you do that, so that you can.
Well, that comes into our funding issue too, is
Right.
Because right now at $15, we're actually running each ride into a deficit.
Yeah, and
Because it's not enough.
Yeah, I totally get that. It is a huge issue because, like I said, the people that need this are the people that don't have that money. So I think that that's probably the barrier that you're running into, is the very population that you're serving are the population that can't pay. So I don't know what the answer to that.
Yeah, no, I think this is a great conversation though, too, because I mean, it's a bonus that Laura is here, because I wouldn't have that information, right, around like what people are saying too. And when you think about strategies, you know, Deborah, when you think about like, we need to let people know about us. And I think that could be one of the ways to like increase awareness. But if paying and funding is a barrier, then the awareness isn't going to get to the root cause, right? It's not going to get to the issue. So I think I think this is a great conversation around what are the reasons, you know? Go ahead.
What's super funny or coincidental is this program was mimicked from Flint. And if anybody has seen anything about the Flint, they went from 5 cars to 180 cars in a matter of 4 years. We started out with 5, we're at 7. So we are growing, we are doing some things. However,
Is it sustainable? Yeah.
Yeah, how are they paying for that?
Yeah, how'd they get to 70?
COVID money. We used CARES funding to get the cars, to get the software, to start paying the drivers and the training and all that. And eventually that money will run out. And that's where I'm at now, is sustaining this program that has to be in this community. I can tell you, I pull comment cards from every passenger. They fill them out at their convenience. They send them back. And countless times have I been told we have saved somebody's life by getting them to the Victory Clinic, by getting them to chemotherapy, to dialysis, where they need to go. And what happens when this isn't available anymore, if that ever comes to be? Like, what are going to happen to these people in this community that need to go?
So have you, and I don't know that much about how DHHS works and Medicaid. Have you thought about partnering with them?
So we do. Angela Guadagnini covers everybody with Medicaid. If they are eligible for Medicaid to pay for the services, they're eligible for a free ride. She covers it. Still, we only bill $15, but I mean, that's covers them to go to their doctors. Less stress for the consumer.
Yeah, definitely, but it doesn't cover your paperwork and the maintenance on the vehicles and all that good stuff that goes along with providing those rides.
Yes, so we're not actually too far off though. We're about $16. Ryan, you might have to jump in here. We're about $16 per trip that we take per day.
That was the last thing we figured, was we're running at about a $16 per trip deficit, which, I mean, when you're charging $15, and it seems like a lot, you know, $16 is, double the fare of, or, when you were taking in the 15, but we're running at $16 deficit. So it's costing us about $31 per trip to run that, when you consider administrative costs, mileage, wear and tear on the vehicles, gas, plus driver salary and everything else that kind of goes with that. So it's kind of tough to overcome. And, we have the Reserve Ride program here as well, which I was in charge of for, 6 years. And, we are actually referring people to Rides to Wellness because we're running on Reserve Ride at capacity. And a lot of the folks that need the rides on Rides to Wellness are folks that are out in the county that have appointments on Tuesdays and Thursdays, where the Reserve Ride does not run for county residents. Or we're completely booked up on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and they can't get in to get to the doctor. So we're like, we're trying to push people to the Rides to Wellness, but it's like you said, that $15 can be a barrier. A lot of people are like, nope, I just won't go. I can't afford $15 to get there, and it's, so I mean, that's where funding comes into play as well, because, for those folks who can't afford that, additional funding coming from community partners can help to subsidize that fare for some people that can't afford that.
So with Flint, they take all these extra funding, and that's how they're able to give everyone in their community a free ride. Wouldn't that be nice? I mean,
Yeah,
they have all this extra available, and Jackson doesn't have it.
Why is
So
that
they can-
again? Why do they have extra funding?
So they have funding from McLaren Hospital. Different agencies have gave them thousands and thousands of dollars. The water crisis gave them health issues, so that covers part of it. If it comes from the water, then they get to bill it under the water fund.
Yeah.
And I haven't even touched all their funding yet, because I spent 2 days basically on the phone and at Flint, and I didn't even get all the way through their funding options. But then there's other things that Flint can't touch that Jackson is allowing. So it's like we have to weigh out our options, because those going to the methadone clinic, you can't do that in Flint, but you can do that here. Our DHS department says, no, we need to get this opiate epidemic under control. And Flint's like, we're going to do something else.
yeah, Flint's a very different community than Jackson is. And I know there's a Center for Independent Living in Flint also. And they have a lot of corporate dollars that come in to assist that we don't have the availability of here. I know the Center for Independent Living there gets, their donations are like completely out of our realm. Disability Connections, they'll have donors that give $50,000 every year, towards whatever they want to use it on. So it makes their, but they have a larger population that they serve too. So it can be difficult to find those outside sources. I will be, and I don't even know, does JATA have a Facebook page?
Yes.
Okay. So as you post things, I'll try to friend you guys so that we can share, because we share all kinds of things through our Facebook page. And we don't have millions of followers, but probably the followers that we have would be people that would use your service. So I'd be happy to do that. Might help a little bit.
Thank you.
Great.
But it's not going to solve your overall problems of, those, like I said, the people that we serve, probably 90% of them are low income to extremely low income, and just don't, it's a matter of eating or having their medications or a ride someplace. And
Laura, aren't your people Medicaid eligible or Medicare, I guess?
some,
Oh, okay.
it
And
depends.
some are like just missing, because I'm also well aware that there are a lot of people who are either working poor or don't qualify for Medicaid, but still.
There
I
are
just want to
people-
confirm that, like, as you're
Yep,
talking
so
about
people
that.
on disabilities tend to be, which is sad. If you receive SSDI or SSI, you're very limited on how much money that you can make if you do want to work. So that you are, they're basically, this is my opinion, are forced to be poor
Yeah.
if you want medical coverage.
Yeah.
So if you could work and wanted to work, but couldn't find a company that provided medical coverage for you, you can't do it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a sad situation
Yeah.
that we're working to change, but it's a systemic
Yeah, it is.
situation. So it's not something that you can just say, hey.
Well, it's really the same for Medicaid, truly, except for like parents with children or whatever, but Medicaid runs the same way. The minute you make X amount of money, a very low amount, you
It is a
stop
very low amount.
qualifying and they encourage you, right? So, we don't have time to get into all that today, but it is frustrating that.
It's very frustrating. We have a lot of staff that have disabilities that are limited on the hours that they can work so that they don't lose their benefits, or just plain can't work because they're going to lose their benefits.
Yeah.
So it's very frustrating. It's almost like it's a
lose-lose situation.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. So.
But that helps me understand too, as you're as you're talking about like people with limited funding, so they might not necessarily qualify for the Medicaid or DHS, right? Like partnership free ride.
And then I have all these other partnerships that I've created. Like I've been in transportation. I drove school bus for 5 years. I worked at Colonial Transportation doing non-emergency medical for 5 years. So a lot of the agencies I had partners, relationships built from there, and I brought all that over. So Region 2, we have a partnership with them. They send me anybody and everybody Jackson County wide. They're like, can you go to other counties? Well, we are waiting for our board to say yay or nay. But that could affect things. People want to go to Ann Arbor. They need to go to Ann Arbor. I get calls on a daily for Ann Arbor and Lansing every day. Why? Because they can get better healthcare coverage, or it's what they can afford. But then that's going to cause that amount to go up. I can't take you to Ann Arbor for $15.
Right.
So,
Agreed.
but we still have other partnerships that cover costs for transportation. Region 2 has countless people, and that's actually where the 60 and older funding is coming from. They gave us an $8,000 grant to use strictly just for rides to cover senior citizens or those that care for a senior citizen. That blew my mind. Then we only had a short period of time that we were supposed to use it by. So they've extended that. But that money is almost gone. I expect it to be gone within the next 30 days, to be honest.
Yeah, $8,000 sounds like a lot, but it doesn't go so far when you start spreading it out.
It will, and we've got some people that Region 2 will pay for 2 days a week of dialysis, so then they're stuck paying that other $30 a week. And this funding came into play because she was choosing whether to have dialysis or to pay for the rides.
So can you help me understand a little bit about your program and like, these obviously, it sounds like a personalized, like I would like a pickup at 10 a.m. and then I would like, right? So it's a personalized.
So it's
ride.
personalized, same day. We do same day service when we can. We cater to what the need is for the person. If say they're having a procedure and they have to have somebody wait with them, but they don't have any family, our driver is going to wait with them at that procedure. It's no extra cost, no, hey, they know their ride is outside. How can they sit in there and do all the things that a family member is going to do? No, but they know they have a ride to their home. They're going to get them into the house. And then hopefully there's somebody there that will help them if they need more, outside of that. So we act as their personal care attendant. We're going to help with wheelchairs, wheeling them down a ramp. We're going to help with walkers, making sure nobody falls. We're going to help with the groceries, the small children. You can bring your kids with us. We have Ford Flexes that hold 6 people plus the driver. So and then we have the minivans for wheelchair access. We run our drivers start working at 7 a.m. That way that people can get to that 8 o'clock appointment. And they will run as late as, their last pickup. We try to get them about 4:45 so they can be back here by 5:30. Yesterday, my driver didn't get back here till 6:30. Why? Because the patient ran over, then he left some belongings, different things happen. And our drivers at least are flexible with that. Do I like to see that every day? No. But on the rare occasion it happens, we definitely try to accommodate what that need is for that client. We run as many cars as I have.
Do you have a lot of do you have data around like the most of your people, the people that access your services are this age or have disabilities? Or I'm just thinking of also like, or do they have maybe not the knowledge of like a bus route? Are they not on a bus route? I'm just like wondering like if money is a barrier, or like how do you know that there is still a need for your services?
So a lot of the people I can tell you are either senior or disabled. They're on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they are predominantly out of Jackson city limits, which means they're outside of a bus line.
Okay.
Not saying Tuesday, Thursday, that is not the same, because we run countywide Monday through Friday. We don't have any service limitations as long as it's Jackson County. But if you think about short-term, long-term, once you get past Myers, there's no more city bus on the east end of town. Once you get out past Airport Road, there's no more city bus. I'm picking up people in Pleasant Lake, Rives Junction, Grass Lake, Brooklyn, Napoleon. We're helping the Safe Haven House through Region 2, which is Brooklyn, getting their people that's been abused or neglected. It's over the age of 50 for them. And they aren't able to jump, hey, I've got 5 appointments in town. What happens if they run into their abuser? It's their way of keeping them safe.
Bless your heart.
And all this stuff is in my head all day.
So,
Wow.
Deborah, you've talked a little bit about things that you've tried. What are some of the strategies that you've put into place up to this point to increase awareness?
So we have done a TV commercial through JTV.
Okay.
I do know that there has been it's been a little while. There was a TV commercial or blurb on WLNS. We have flyers and pamphlets. Personally, I can tell you they've been taken to almost every doctor's office, dialysis center inside of Jackson County, because I went. When I go to my kids' doctor's appointments, dentist, whatever the case may be, I make sure I have something with me because they run out. They don't have people to call and say, hey, I'm out of this. We leave them at downtown at our transfer center so that anybody on the city bus lines, if they have something that they need to go to, they have it. Maybe they're taking it to the neighbors. I have worked out with Community Action Agency, Justin Counts and Cornell, and they pass out my information pretty regularly because I'm friends with them. A lot of our stuff is basically trying to make sure that we get the flyers in everybody's hands, because then they'll at least have what we can do.
And
Do you
then
have a relationship with the Department on Aging or the Health Department?
So I have a relationship working in the progress with the health department. Because of COVID, they love us because we're doing single ride service. We only have one person per car. The cars are sanitized in between us. And the Department on Aging already has their own bus. The only thing they can send me is stuff they can't transport, which is going to be somebody with oxygen or somebody in a wheelchair. And that's sad for our vets and then if they need to go to Ann Arbor or Lansing, they can't go because they've got oxygen. They can't transport anybody with oxygen.
So go back to the health department. You said you have a working relationship, or you're working on it?
I'm working on one.
Okay.
So they don't have any funding. They have no funding to help cover these rides for their people. So if it's WIC, 9 times out of 10, anybody on WIC is going to have Medicaid.
Yeah.
That's going to send it back over to DHS. If they don't have DHS or Medicaid, then they're on their own, and the health department says they have no funding. Not even.
So if you're looking for, so there's 2 different things here that you're looking for. You're looking for financial assistance from these, but if you're looking for getting the information out there, can they just do that for you?
So they do have our flyers. They say they're hung up. I've went in there, I've seen them, but it doesn't seem like they're kind of giving them because they never need a refill.
Well, that kind of speaks to the relationship part too, right? Like we talk about that all the time. Like, yes, thanks for your flyer, but usually, I mean, I have found that the relationship piece, or like the value, or like you said, like if a person doesn't have funding, like maybe there just needs to be a better understanding of it, or maybe you need to maybe the relationship building will help that,
Hopefully.
And they may be doing that also, but those 2 organizations also are kind of like me. The majority of the people they serve are low income. So unless they can get some sort of assistance with funding, and I think that my opinion is, from what I hear from my people, is that's your biggest barrier, is finding that funding.
And I hear that as well. Like when they call and they're like, how much? And I have to tell them, and they're like, oh, I'm not going.
Yeah, I can't do that. Yeah, we get a lot of that too, because we send you as many people as we can. We have a couple programs that have some funding that can assist with that. But the majority of the people that call looking for resources go, oh, I can't do that. So I think that's going to be your biggest obstacle.
Well, and one of the sad things about that is look at some of the alternatives. I mean, if
Right.
you're talking a cab, you're paying well more than $15 for your ride. If you're talking something that needs somebody that needs a wheelchair accessible vehicle
Exactly.
and go to Nets, you're talking $50, $60, $70 per ride, depending on where you're
Oh
going.
yeah, each way. Yeah.
So,
I was gonna
We were so
Right.
excited when you guys came up with this program because that's all that we had in the past. I mean, we have so many people that are wheelchair users that they have an appointment and there's no transportation for them, period. And yeah, we were looking at $150 to send somebody to dialysis
right.
one time.
Yeah.
And that's just not sustainable to do that. There's nothing else. So yeah, to us, the $30 round trip was like, yay. But you still have those people that, okay, that's great. It's a lot cheaper than it was before, but it's still out of my price range. So,
Right.
you know,
Do you have a relation? Have you connected with 211? Because a lot of folks will call 211 for transportation.
So we have, and we also use the Care Hub, so they send
Okay.
me referrals. But either their phone number is not working, the information isn't valid. They'll tell me they have Medicaid, but it's actually Blue Cross Blue Shield because the correct questions aren't getting answered. So then they're like down. They're like,
yeah, or they tell you it's Medicaid instead of Medicare,
Medicare.
or Medicare instead of Medicaid.
Right.
Because they don't really understand the difference. And that's the consumers. I have many consumers that I'll say, what kind of insurance do you have? I think it's Medicare. I'm like, okay, is it income based or is it because of your age that you have this? My age. Well, that's Medicaid. So yeah, there's a lot of
I have a lot of barriers over here.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I mean,
Yep.
there's a lot. It's difficult. I mean, this is the whole reason this affinity group exists because
Yeah.
it's hard to kind of go through it. And the other question I was wondering about, Deborah, is faith-based community because I know a lot of folks will reach out to their local churches for assistance.
So we have a MOU, a memorandum of understanding with the Love Inc.
I was just going to say, Love Inc. does a lot of funding for some of these.
And they send us, they get bus tickets, they get bus passes. They also do some reserve ride stuff.
Mhm.
I also have some ties to some Vandercook Lake Missionary Church. He also helps on the board for Center for Women. So I've reached out to the churches that I've heard about through different things, and Love Inc. kind of put me in direct. But as far as every church, no, I haven't.
Yeah. No, I'm
What
just
about
wondering.
Catholic Charities? I mean,
Yeah.
they're a huge organization.
So they provide their own transportation, but they have limits. So you're allowed 2 trips a month for the first so many weeks, and then you're kind of out of luck. So then they'll refer them to us once their transportation has been exhausted through Catholic Charities.
Hmm.
And to me, Catholic Charities, they go out of town. Why wouldn't you use it for your out of town trips and then use other services for your in-town stuff?
So,
Or
do
for
you have
wheelchair users, or
yeah.
because I know that they can't assist wheelchair users. And the person has to be ambulatory.
Right. And can you go out of town if they're willing to fund the out of town trip, Deborah? Like,
So I'm waiting on our board on
okay.
that one.
Oh, okay.
So
You
it's
mentioned
been
that.
discussed, it's been brought to them, and then we're just waiting for approval.
Okay.
The question there becomes is, are we still servicing the community that we're trying to focus on? Is this the Jackson community and getting them where they need to go? Taking them out of there is gonna put my car out of service, it's gonna put my driver out of service. Then I've got to have at least one more car or one more driver to replace that driver that's already out for that trip.
Right.
So, and then keeping our same guidelines of one person per car, are we going to be able to do that?
Yeah. Sorry,
So
Ryan.
one of the strategies that I have been working on for transportation as a whole, so when we're kind of segueing from rides to wellness for a quick minute and going into just mass transit in general, is I've been really trying hard to change the conversation. So a lot of people want information regarding our ridership. how many people are you transporting a year? Why is this service worth supporting? And I'm trying to change that conversation from how many people are we transporting to how many people are we turning away,
Mhm.
right? Because ultimately, as an agency, we are attempting to eliminate barriers to opportunity by providing transportation for people. So the people that we are turning away are the folks who can't get to their doctor, can't get to the grocery store so they can get food, can't get to the pharmacy so that they can pick up medication, can't get to social activities so that they can, kind of treat their mental health as well, that kind of thing. So I'm trying to get people talking about, those folks who are being turned away every week from our services because we don't have the capacity to accommodate them. Funding plays a lot into that. I just literally was just talking about this at Rural Task Force because there are so many people that require rides that we can't accommodate, right? So I think a big thing is to try to get community leaders talking about transportation the way they talk about police service, the way they talk about fire service. That's a big focus, and I understand funding is extraordinarily limited, but and police and fire is extremely important. They're base community services that are needed, right? So is transportation, but everybody kind of, they look the other way when it comes to transportation, right? Although for any one of us in this group, it's going to probably be more likely in our lifetime that we're going to need a ride somewhere to some kind of a vital service than we will possibly need a police officer to come to our door or the fire department to respond to our home. Hopefully that never happens, right? But ideally, and truth be told, at some point in time in our lives, we're probably going to need a ride somewhere.
Yep,
To
and
get
I
to the
think that your
doctor's office.
biggest problem there is that it is a huge problem, but it's a problem of the poor. So it's a class structure
That's
thing.
right.
Everyone, whether they're rich or poor, uses the police. Everyone, whether they're rich or poor, uses the fire department. But poor people use transportation.
I agree with that, Lori, and you're absolutely right. That's how it's perceived. But what about those folks who might have money? They live out, let's say they live out in the big, beautiful home in Grass Lake, but now they're too old. And the state says, I'm sorry, you can't drive anymore. That person can have all the money in the world, but if they don't have family to take them to appointments, if they don't have family or friends that can pick them up and take them to appointments,
Yep, and I would agree. As we're an aging population, that's more and more going to be an issue.
Yeah.
But I think it's such a small part of the population right now that's what
Yeah.
you're battling.
Yeah,
so
because they
too.
can get Uber, Lyft, or cabs. I mean, they have resources to find those alternative rides, but
Well, in Jackson, they really don't have the option for Uber or Lyft because I don't really think, although they have kind of a presence in Jackson, there's not a substantial presence in Jackson, not the type of presence that we have.
right.
And I think we need to start kind of steering that conversation towards, this is not just a problem for the poor, like Laura was saying, this is a problem for everybody because I can have all the money in the world, but I get into a car accident tomorrow and then I won't be able to drive because I have 2 broken legs and I'm in a wheelchair. You know what I mean? It might even be just a temporary issue, but at the same time, it's still an issue. So, I'm trying, that's what strategy wise, I'm trying to steer that conversation towards the realities, of issues when you're dealing with lack of transportation. You know what I mean?
Do you look at demographics of who utilizes your services or when you're turning people away? Like, do you look at demographics of who's getting turned away, like just to break down that most underserved population?
So what I do is I track trip denials throughout the week, and it's broke down by zone. So people who live within the city are denied. That goes into that. So people that live in Blackman, Summit, or Leone, they're broke down into a separate group. And then those who are in the kind of the outlying parts of the county. So what we consider zone 3, those are separated into a group 2. Now, can I break it down even further? Yeah, I can absolutely break it down by who pays a reduced fare, who would have paid an adult fare if that person is, elderly or disabled. Yeah, we can definitely do that, and I do look at that frequently. There's 2 gals that live out in Grass Lake right now that I know they both pay reduced fare because they're disabled. They're trying to get into town for job access on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They can't get rides, and they're just, it's just a simple job. Like they do it through J-Town Clubhouse. So,
So what do sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. I had a question. I really did. The townships. So I know that I'm not real familiar with how things work. I know the townships used to kick in some for transportation. Is that, I probably just opened a can of worms, didn't I?
so
I can tell by Deborah's face.
So the townships actually did not kick in towards transportation. It was the county itself.
Okay.
And somehow or another, some years ago, that funding went away. So we were providing county service through our reserve ride anyway, for Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. What that funding covered, and actually it didn't even fully cover it, but it definitely helped to subsidize the service, was it paid for 2 extra vans so that we were not having the capacity issues when trying to schedule. So what we end up seeing happening is the more people that are scheduled to ride, like on those county vans, the more people start calling in, right? It's kind of like unemployment. You can collect unemployment and collect it for so long, but if you can't find a job for year after year after year, you just end up dropping off the employment rolls altogether, and you're not even counted anymore, right? Same thing with rides. If you try to get rides for so long and you just cannot seem to get onto the schedule, well, you just stop trying. So the more people we're able to accommodate, the more people seem to try to call and get on the schedule. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a self-perpetuating thing,
The goal would be eventually to have those townships help kick in some of that cost, though, I would think.
Wouldn't that be lovely?
Or the county itself. We've pressed and we've talked to the county and tried to get, like a county millage, something to help support the system, and millage money, money talks, it's like we try to get, but we can't seem to even get on a ballot. The county seems to block us, and I'm not 100% sure why. I'm pretty new to this position. I've only been in it for a couple of months, so I'm trying to start networking with more people at the county level, trying to understand, okay, so what is it that keeps you from supporting this? What kind of information, what kind of things do you need from us to put your support behind it?
Well, that's a great segue, because I can tell you, I know that Deborah started an action plan, and we're still like working on some strategies or whatever. But we have funding attached to our inequitable policies and practices affinity group, and that group will be deciding where funding goes, and disaggregated data will be a part of it. It will be a part of, like, how do you know this, which is also, this whole conversation has been helpful, hopefully for you as well, because we will be saying, like, there's not really an RFP or proposal, but there will be an action plan around, like, well, what do you plan on doing, as an intervention with this money, and how do you know that this works, right? And what are the breakdowns of the population that you're serving, and hopefully it leads to bigger conversations, because I think that transportation, people not having rides to places, is like a big issue, and it's a deal, but also, like, well, like all the things we've been talking about, well, why can't they? What is deeper here? Like, well, why is there a policy that says the bus can't run here? Well, why is it, like, to me, there's always like what can fix this thing right now? And then also, what is a deeper issue around, I would feel fairly confident in thinking that there's a there's a disparity in people that need rides or that utilize services around income level, around race, maybe gender, I don't know, probably age, but that it disproportionately affects a certain population, right? And like, well, why is that? And so having that data will then allow us to have a conversation to then like address the big stuff too, you know?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. That's why I asked a little bit about the data piece, because um, uh, Ryan, you said that people like look away from transportation. They don't want to acknowledge that. It's actually a topic in every organization, in every household. Like transportation is an issue, right? I think what people are trying to do is dig in deeper. So transportation is really like a symptom. Like that is what we're seeing on the surface to bigger issues that folks are dealing with, right? So they can't get to rides. Why is that? Well, because they can't earn a living wage. Well, why is that? Because they can't, like there are deeper issues that folks are dealing with. And what we're seeing on the surface or in our community is that transportation is an issue. So there's never been a organization or a conversation I've heard about community barriers that transportation doesn't bubble up. And what I think we're moving toward or trying to move toward is, why is transportation a symptom? Why are we seeing that they can't get a ride? What is going on in our community that, when you're digging deeper, like that Black and brown folks don't have cars or can't get jobs or, and so I think we're moving toward that. Like there are bigger problems in their lives that is causing them to not have a car or not be able to afford the bus or not be able to afford, some of the things to get them to these medical appointments or jobs or job interviews or things like that.
Right.
So yeah, I think this action planning piece that Sarah mentioned that Deborah's working on will kind of help dig into those. Like look at that disaggregated data. Like who is it most disproportionately affecting, right? Are they the elderly? Are they Black and brown folks in our community? Like who's getting turned away? And show that need, be able to show that need for like a targeted population that you can focus on, like those closest to the problem most affected by the inequities, I think will be helpful moving forward.
Right. We don't track data as far as race is concerned. So we wouldn't be able to really trace racial inequities as far as that's concerned. What we look at probably more is our elderly community, our disabled community, and to some extent our our impoverished communities, the ones that are Medicaid eligible because they are low income and they don't have the funding to be able to get back and forth to medical appointments and whatnot, so it's we can aggregate, we've got data as an aggregate, we can kind of drill down on that data a little bit, not as much as what we would probably need to. We do utilize, we've got some in our long-term transportation or long-range transportation plan. We have some maps that were put together that show some of the different communities in and around the Jackson area and where some of our bus routes touch and where some of those communities are kind of based off of the census. So we kind of estimate some of those populations when it comes to things, but we're talking actual ridership data. We could drill down to like those folks that are elderly, those folks that are disabled, or both. And then, but
Is that because they qualify for different, what is the reason that you track like elderly and disabilities? Is that because they qualify for different things?
Well, one of it is because they get to ride at a reduced fare.
Yeah.
So there's that part of it.
You can track
and
that.
then there's some ADA stuff in there. And then the Fed they like to know who do you have that's riding, who do you have that's, in elderly populations. They haven't asked us to track racially those riders that, that are riding. So that's just one of those things we don't ask when we're populating them in as a customer,
So it might be something to think about just because, and it's uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable, but we ask because we get some government funding and they want to know what populations we're serving. So if, and this is, I'm going off topic a little bit here, and I should probably know this. Are you a nonprofit or a for-profit agency?
Nonprofit.
You're a nonprofit.
Yeah, okay. We're nonprofit. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so, but I needed to clarify. So there may be There's all kinds of grants and funding out there. If you search and work hard. And some of those might be wrapped around helping those diverse populations.
Mhm.
So it might be something to take into consideration that you would gather that information. So it might help you with some type of funding.
I think that's a great point, Laura. And as we're like, we have yet to have an affinity group where we don't talk about racial inequities. It's certainly at the forefront of everything that we're doing, which is also why we talk about disaggregating data. And it would make sense if you don't have like people asking you, right, for the certain data that you wouldn't collect it. But I think Laura brings up a great point too, because I mean, I know we just like presented at a Jackson Community Foundation, and they just released funding to help like address racial inequities. And I'm sure you all already know, like, well, I guess I shouldn't assume, but like all of the disparities around education and health, you know, around race. And so to me, that could be a great opportunity to say like, well, we're not required to track this, but we have the data now, and we can prove that most of our, like, if you have a whole, back to Deborah's thing around the assumption that people don't know about your program, like, well, like, how do you know? And is there a certain population that doesn't know? Like, is there a method that maybe some like the poor part of town, or a part that's predominantly Black, or like, is the method, like, all of those things should be thought about and talked about. And I don't know what you're doing, Deborah, I'm just making that up. But these are the things that we talk about. Like, and when I say, oh, well, I sent an email out to people, they should know about my meeting. I'm like, well, is that an equitable statement? Is that something that, like, should I assume that my, you know, so just those things that I think Laura brings up a great point around different things. And also showing that, like, it would be hard. Like, I know what you're saying, Ryan, around like, oh, this part of town is predominantly like Black and brown or poor, and we can make assumptions. But to have that strong data, and then to show that you're like trying to mitigate it or reduce the disparity is pretty powerful.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Mhm.
And like I said, it is a difficult question to ask when you're speaking with somebody and you say, what's your race? The first thing you get back is, why do you need to know that?
Mhm.
It
know,
can't
so
be
we
any
try to
harder than asking them if they have a mobility device
Yes, yes, it
True.
is harder because
True.
people
or if they're in a
always take
bariatric
offense. Why do you
wheelchair.
need to know that? Is it because that you want, because people that you're asking might, I mean, if they've been discriminated against, it's a sore point for them. So we try to explain that we are trying to make sure that we're serving all the populations that we need to. And in order to know that we're serving all those populations, we gather that information to make
That's
those
right.
decisions on
Great way to
how we
address
should
it.
do things differently.
Yeah, we run into that same thing when we just ask people, like when we're plugging in people, customers, consumers for our rides, or not rides, well, I'm sorry, our reserve a ride program. We ask for their birthday. They're like, I want to give you my birthday. I'm like, well, part of it is, you know, we're trying to identify whether or not you qualify for a reduced fare or not. But we
Right.
track that because, you know, we want to know if you're elderly, and that's a metric that the feds ask us to track. You know,
Yep.
same thing with people who have disabilities and stuff like that. I'm looking at our customer screen right now in our dispatching. We actually do not have a drop down for you know, what race they identify with as far as like part of their customer screen. They ask for whether or not this person is elderly or disabled, low income, or a child. So that actually asks for low income as far as a checkbox is concerned. Is this person, you know, considered poverty? And what, that's a metric we actually don't even ask that of them, because it's like, that's subjective. Okay.
I was gonna say,
You know,
what's that
you get-
barrier? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, what do you classify it as? You know, you can ask individual customers, is there, you know, are you low income? Well, what does that mean?
Where's the cutoff? Yeah, I love the way that you presented that, Laura, too. And I think that Ryan, I would look into looking at, and there's a way to ask it. Like, yes, it's uncomfortable, but you could say, would you mind, sharing with me your race? And if they say why, you just say, we want to make sure we're serving all populations and reaching
Yeah,
folks that maybe haven't traditionally been reached. And I can't imagine people taking offense at that. So,
right.
No,
And
and
if they do,
I
then,
go ahead, Laura.
if they do, we bypass it. There's people that don't want to give you their birth date,
and that's
I don't want to
okay.
give you
Yeah.
my birth date.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, and I love, because the truth is that, like, I love the way you put that, Laura, because the truth is that, like, we're doing our best, our best with my lens, and my lens is very different, and my life experience, et cetera. So, like, if I'm offering these programs and then I click data and it shows that 80% of the people that I serve are white and middle class, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe the issue could be with me. Maybe it's a systemic issue. Maybe I need to look at my policies. Maybe I need to look at the way I'm doing things, because who I'm serving is not reflecting what the community looks like. And there's also a piece of, like, humility and, like, checking the ego, right? We talk about this all the time in our meetings, which is why
There is. We found that we did a majority of our information online. We have an online newsletter. We discontinued our paper newsletter because it's costly. So we went to online newsletter. We're Facebook, we're Instagram, we're Twitter, we're doing all these things, and yet we're finding that there's a section of the population that we're not reaching, but it's because they don't have internet.
Mhm.
They don't have access to those services. So, and they might not even have TV. So they're not seeing the JTV ads. They're not seeing the anything that we're doing online or in a Wi-Fi method.
Right.
So we've gone back to doing a paper newsletter
Good.
and we put those in places. We're not mailing them out unless someone requests them, but it is available for request. But we're trying to put them in places where people in those populations that don't have services will have access to them. So that might be something that you want to think about. I know flyers are difficult and they are costly, but they do help to reach those populations that don't have access to online services.
Yeah, great thought. Laura, I know I want to be cognizant of time a little bit too, and I want to give you a chance to speak about what might be going on in your organization and ways that you're addressing some of the service systems. So I love that you just brought up moving back
Yeah.
toward to make sure
Yeah,
that
and
you're
that's
doing
one of the ways that we're bringing that up. We've kind of changed our strategy. We are focusing more on inclusiveness right now because we were basically begun as a civil rights organization. So we're not thinking about just wow. Let me try that again. Specifically people with disabilities, but our community as a whole, because we're finding out that if the community as a whole understands people with disabilities, then they're more supportive of people with disabilities. So we are, like I said, trying to change our focus on bringing the whole community together. We've changed our yearly event that we do. We've always done a disability awareness event in October because that's Disability Awareness Month. So we've changed that to the inclusion event and are trying to make that a free event. It's always been, you pay $25 and you come to dinner, and we have a speaker that talks about disabilities. So we're trying to move our strategy so that we have sponsors that support the event, so that anybody that wants to can come. Whether they're poor, or whether they're rich, or whether they're disabled, or whatever it is that they're experiencing, that they can come together as a community and then help them to understand that people with disabilities are part of that full community also. So that's our strategy right now.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
And Laura, I can tell you, I wasn't aware of everything that you guys do. So my daughter is actually one of the consumers at Disability Connections. She found out about it through her school, and it has empowered her in many, many different ways, to the point where she's even looking at a change of what her plan for careers were.
I love to
So
hear those success stories.
I had not even realized how many things that you guys had done until she got involved.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. We like the positives.
Yes.
That's
Generally, we
amazing.
don't get to hear the positives. We just hear the negative.
She's became really good friends with a couple of the guys that aren't there and different things. So that really, like, I thought it was going to turn her off, and she's jumped right in with the one that replaced the next one and this
Good.
one and that one. So, and we found out about that through the school. We didn't find out anything. I mean, everybody's
we're-
known she had disabilities for years and years and years, and nobody
Yeah.
ever said anything until we get to junior year in high school, and everybody's like, hey, she's eligible for MRS and disability connections, and let's try to move her into these places. And I'm like, where were you guys for like 5 years?
Yep. So we're working really hard on getting, we've relied on in the past on MRS is a great organization. They're a very large organization and they do many things. And we've relied on them in the past to kind of bring things to us. And we've kind of changed our strategies there too. We are now contacting the schools and saying, hey, this is something that's available. It's available through MRS. We can do this for you. So we're hoping to open some more doors because, you know, the younger we connect with those populations, the more successful they're going to be, just like your daughter. If you wait until they're a senior and they want to move out of the household, they're not prepared to work. They're not prepared, you know, for all the skills that they need to get out into the world. So if we can address that when they're younger, then they grow into that footprint and not, it's not a huge, oh my gosh, what are we going to do now?
That's awesome. That's amazing stuff. Okay, I'm going to move us along because I've loved every minute of all of these conversations. But I'm
I
just
told
gonna,
you if you let me talk, it was going to be.
I
it's
know,
gonna be
and
good.
I want to hear more about it.
Great.
But we're
And
gonna give
that's
you,
what I say too. That's why they keep me on a leash over here.
no, it's amazing stuff. And I love having that, like, you know, even between each other, having those thought partnerships of like, how can we help do things differently, or what has worked in your organization? I think that's one of the biggest benefits. I think that's amazing. So, and we're going to give you an opportunity to kind of share these in a more formal way, moving forward. If, and I know some of, Sarah, I'm going to bump through this. Well,
Yeah,
Um,
let's just show the place to enter. I mean, yeah, yep. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Great.
okay, so we've talked about all of the strategies and all of the things. This is a way through our website that you can like build an action plan. And I know, Deborah, you're starting one, and Laura, if there's an opportunity to do that, this is the way our community knows that we're making progress on some of these barriers that we're experiencing. It's kind of a way that we can all input. So many people in our community are doing such amazing things to try to address barriers. And so we're trying to get folks to actually enter that into our database, I guess you could call it, so that we can see that around, you know, navigating service systems, we have 8 organizations with these 15 strategies that are addressing difficult service systems. And we can look at, you know, that in a pie chart or in a graph to say, yeah, we actually have a lot of organizations working on this. These are the things that we're doing. We can look at each other's action plans and say, oh, wow, Disability Connection went back to, you know, paper newsletters. Maybe we should think about doing that, or, you know, building off each other's strengths and weaknesses. So we encourage you to do action plans. We'll send all of these links after the meeting, but we encourage you to go in. It's not super difficult. It looks complicated and it's fine print and all of this kind of thing, but it's really not super difficult. So the questions that we go through when you click on this from our website is just, as we just talked about, like, what's the problem? People aren't using rides to wellness. Who's most impacted? This is where we drill down on the data. Like, well, it's elderly, or it's folks on Medicaid, or whatever it might be. And then what does the data show? Well, when we get surveys back from folks, we will kind of, you know, we'll better understand that their race, or we're asking race now, or things like that. And then what action are you, is your agency committed to taking? So this is where the strategies kind of start to build out. Like, we're committed to asking about race when they, you know, call our organization. We're committed to reaching out to these 6 organizations with partnerships. We're committed to, I don't know, you know, many different strategies around that. and actually this one isn't about building trust. In this case, it would be
Yeah.
about navigating
Whoopsies.
service systems. And then, so as you're building it, these are the questions that you'll be answering in that database. And then we ask about how you know you'd be successful. We'll have more folks using Rides to Wellness, or we'll have increased our funding availability for Rides to Wellness, or we will have better knowledge in the community about our service, or and then measuring success, like, you know, how will you track and measure your progress? Will we see, you know, we'll see an increase in the number of rides, or we'll see an increase in the number of folks engaging with disability connections, or whatever that might be. And then do you have assets that you can leverage? Relationships, I know, like Deborah, you talked about the different relationships you already have. Those are kind of the leverage pieces of that. And then kind of calling out what tools, resources that you need to be successful. And that might be increasing relationships, you know, obtaining funding, whatever it might be. So this seems like a lot. Sarah and I are always available to help you work through these. We can do one-on-ones to do action planning to kind of help you think deeper on some of these. But if we can get the majority of our community members or community organizations to start building this, it'll really be powerful in understanding what's going on in the community around these deeper root cause issues. Because I know it's happening, but we don't have kind of a warehouse to store all of this information. And so we're not building off of each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we're not looking at what's happened. And so this is a plug that we're really hoping to get in. Sarah, what did I miss through that?
It sounded great.
Okay. All right. So yeah, we'll send a link to the action plan. We encourage everyone to do it. It can be a simple thing that you're addressing, and it can be complicated. It also lets us share wins and barriers, which we just skipped through.
Oh, quick question, because I know
Yes.
I did one. Did I put it in the right place? Because it said it had to go under which group, and then I didn't want to continue if I wasn't in the right place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I sent you an email back with next steps.
Okay.
So,
I hadn't got-
yes. Yep.
Yeah. So it was in
Okay.
the right place. And again, you might have different strategies in your, like JADA might have different things that they're working on. And one might be addressing, you know, it's difficult to navigate, and one might be addressing people don't know about my service. So you might have different spots. That's not as important as really kind of what you're trying to address, and then kind of building that out. So, but once you enter those, it'll pop onto Sarah and I. So we won't publish it right away until we reach out and make sure that we've got the information. So there might be a little bit more in building those strategies. And it's kind of funky, our database and the way that it saves, but we're correcting that now, so that you can input strategies a little bit easier. But yeah, so we'll move through.
Yeah,
those,
just give
and
it a good, if you feel confident about giving it a good shot, Deborah, you can always do it. And then we get a draft. And so if something looks really funky or off, then we can contact you as well and say, oh, did you mean this? Or
Okay.
or if you want to contact us, we can do it together too.
I'm still learning how to do all these things, and Ryan
Oh,
helped me
yeah.
with the action plan. Him and I did that together. So
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it should be, you should get different perspectives from your organization, and you might have different action plans, right? So you might be focused on funding the Rides to Wellness, and Ryan might be focused on looking at policies in your organization that is preventing people from using it. So you
Yep.
might have two different action plans with two different focuses, and that's great. Like, different people in your organization are
Yeah.
probably working on different things.
And that was actually to that point when I had responded to you, because you put both of you down as contact people, and we do require that one person be a contact person, even if you and Ryan are working together and everything. But to Amy's point, even the conversation today, right? Like what you're doing, and obviously like funding is different, but like tied to a program. But what Ryan is doing, like to address the issue, is a little bit different than what you are doing, and so we want to make sure that the action plan reflects what you're doing. Hopefully that was clear.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I will not be able to be in the next meeting, so it'll probably just be Deb.
Okay.
Covering for all of us. I'm actually in an NTI course that week, and the classes start at noon each of those days. So I will be wrapped up in the school.
Okay. And Deb, I think that you came to the last inequities meeting. So we talked about the 3 affinity groups. There, we have one coming up on Thursday, so you might want to consider.
Nope, it's tomorrow.
So
Tomorrow,
it's
I'm
tomorrow. And
I
that
won't be
was
there.
Ryan and I had a quick question, because we want to make sure we're attending where we're supposed to be and not attending where we're not. So because he kind of, like you said, just came into that position, I was always the backup for Chad. But this is the first time I've been in part of the affiliate groups, and
Okay.
I'll
Did
be
you
so-
see my email this morning I sent? I don't know. I had responded to you and sent you, there's like a graphic. So with the inequitable policies and practices, there's a graphic, and then 4 meetings, that's just that group. And then I know we have 2 other affinity groups that like tackle different root causes. And this one is the services are difficult to navigate. So
So should we be attending all 3 of them, or just the services or the inequities? Or should we be just attending whatever we want?
Well, if you are specifically looking for the COVID related inequities, that's going to be that graphic with the 4 meetings.
Okay.
If you have people in your organization that are working on difficult, it's difficult to navigate these service systems because things are complicated, or if you have someone, say you have a community outreach worker that's trying to figure out why people aren't using it and they're looking at building trust within your organization, they go to that one. But I think for you, Deborah, specifically, because you're looking at COVID related inequities, I would say focus on the graphic with the 4 inequities.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I like the idea of building the relationships and learning the system. So maybe I'll
Yeah.
just be in all of them.
Yeah, well, you're welcome to
Well,
all of them.
they're
There's
all
so many
related.
meetings.
Yeah,
know.
they're all beneficial in different ways, and the people that attend are different because the things they're working on are different. The only difference right now is that we have funding attached to one of the groups, and we didn't have that before. So the people that are coming are also different, right? Like including both of you, which is great, but like we also had we have had groups that are all working on how to address trust in the community. And so everyone that is working on that comes and learns from each other and creates action plans.
Yeah.
So the only difference now is that we have funding tied to one of our groups that the council decided to do. So.
Okay, so yeah, so for this particular affinity group, the next one is the 14th. So next month, it's typically, I think it's a week earlier because of the holidays, but we're looking at December 14th for navigating service systems. And then this Friday, we have a coffee connection where folks can come, and this is just an open forum. Sarah and I hang out, and if people have questions or things don't make sense or they want to talk through things, you can pop on at any point and just be like, what's the deal with this? I don't get this. I think you should do this, whatever. It's just kind of an open forum spot. And then, so this is the one, Deborah, that we were talking about. So the inequities one is we've jammed them up every 2 weeks because we have kind of a real tight time frame on figuring out who gets funding, the process on how
Rides
that
to
gets,
wellness.
what's that?
I said rides to wellness.
They advocate
I'll make
for
your
her
choice
group.
easy.
It's not, we don't
Way to
decide.
advocate, Deborah.
I
I know,
know.
right? Well, and this is part of it. So this is really unique because not only will people be making action plans, but the way that people decide who gets funding, it's not us, it's the group. The group decides what that process looks like. So they decide whether it's a voting thing, whether it's how the proposals get submitted, who gets to decide on that, does it take community input? That's all up in the air. So yeah, I mean, if you
All
come
these
to that,
things.
I was gonna
Yes.
say, Laura, I'm not sure and not to like say you should come to that meeting, but also if we're really looking for a lot of diverse perspectives and people in the
So-
community that maybe we haven't had at the table before. So I'm just
Well,
throwing it out there specifically. In
Really-
case you-
So it's tomorrow at 10. I will try to
11.
jump onto the meeting and kind of get a feel for and see whether it should be me or whether it should be somebody else or whether we have some.
Yeah, because and like Amy said, of course, with a lot of funding things, the turnaround, the time is just wild, all the things. So
Yep.
like then tomorrow we're going to be talking about like how the process should be developed and who needs input and who should be consulted. And because the network, like the backbone staff will not be deciding who gets the funding, it will be the group, and the group will have to be represented well in order to approve funding. So we're trying to be really
Gotcha.
creative about who is there.
and
Yeah.
by represented well, we
So-
mean those that are closest to the problem, community members that are experiencing the barriers should be the ones making the decision. So
Yeah.
that's who we
Definitely.
want to get to come.
Definitely. So Do I need an invite? Did you send-
I can pop you on that if you want. I can just add your name to the calendar appointment.
Yeah, if you would. I can't guarantee that I'll make it because
Yeah.
Wednesday is my all-day Zoom day.
Oh, no.
Well, I'll put you on it, and if you come, you come. If you don't, you don't. But at
We
least
were,
it'll pop
we
out
had
on
it
your
on
calendar.
Thursday, but we moved it. So the next one we have, the next 3 we have are on Thursday. Just do your best. And also,
Okay.
like, we're recording them. And also, if you want to chat later about where we are in the process, like,
Okay.
we're happy to be creative and flexible too.
All right. sounds
Laura,
good.
do you want me to just
And-
pop you on to the one tomorrow, and then you can decide later if you want to add to the others?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you would.
What time is the one tomorrow? Is that the one that there, you says all meeting times here is 11 to 12:30,
11.
so it's
11 to
11
12:30.
Because we
Yep.
have an emergency needs coalition meeting at 9:30, and I heard somebody say 10 o'clock, so I wasn't sure.
Yep,
I
9
think
or
the
11.
November 10 got a little bit confusing because it says November 10, but we are meeting at 11 o'clock.
Okay, perfect.
And
Can
Ryan,
I don't have that on my calendar either. Can somebody add me to that?
I can,
Um,
Ryan, and Deborah, do you want to be? I think you'll get added too, Deborah. Because you were at the
we
last.
should
I
make her
think
in.
I will. I don't see the link yet, but
I'll add you to. I'll make sure everyone's on those that came to the last meeting. So, and make sure Laura and Ryan are on.
Thank you.
Yeah, now that I'm finally starting to get caught up, I can start getting into some of these meetings and seeing if this is something that we should be involved in, or if this is something, what I mean, that we
I hear you, Ryan. I
maybe
had the
just
same
down or-
issue. We're experiencing the same thing that people all over the country are, is that we're short-staffed and
Yeah.
And we don't want to create more meetings. That's
Yeah.
the last thing we want to do, is because we're all meetinged out.
Yeah.
But if it's valuable and you can find partnerships and you can build strong strategies, then
Yeah.
we consider
Well,
that.
and
a
for the
win, so.
record, this is not our normal, let's meet every week, every 10 days.
No,
This
this
is
is a
specific
jammed in.
to the funding
Yeah.
because money has to be decided on like December 22nd. It goes to council. And so like, this is a very special limited time offer sort of thing.
Right.
We usually meet monthly and have, conversations in between, but just, we're not looking to, we don't love this frequency either. It's just necessary to get all of the work done. So
those necessary evils.
Right.
yes, we'll get there.
Okay.
On the
All
plus
right.
side, we can do this all on the computer. We don't have to meet in a conference room somewhere. That means we don't have to get up and,
This is true.
go someplace. And I mean, it makes the meeting much more convenient. That's
Much
for
more
sure.
efficient, yes.
You're
Yes.
right.
Yes.
But I miss seeing people.
Yeah, I do
Okay.
too.
And sometimes the Zoom is like, all right already.
Yeah, my rural task force meeting was in person and I felt so weird being there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's a
Yeah.
weird time.
Like you're doing something naughty.
I know.
yeah.
All
All
right, well,
right.
thank you all for joining us. I appreciate the great, rich conversation. Reach out to either Sarah or I at any point if you have questions or need assistance or.
Yes, we'll send you
thoughts
lots
to
of
share.
links too. We've got a meeting evaluation for today, and then also we'll send you the meetings for like this. Amy will put you on the calendar. We'll send you the action planning link, and then just reach out if anything seems confusing.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right,
All
sounds
right,
great.
thanks,
Thank you, guys.
everyone.
See you tomorrow.
All
thank
righty,
you.
take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.